Hello, boys and girls. This is Pa. Are you ready for another bedtime story? You are? Terrific. Have you brushed your teeth? Well done. You've got your jammies on, I see. Now grab Ted, hop up onto the bed. That's it. Snuggle in as we get ready for another bedtime story with Pa. Tonight's story is The Lantern on Pa's Farm. The evening settled gently over Pa's farm. The sky faded from gold to pink, and then to a deep purple scattered with stars. A cool breeze drifted through the gum trees. The horses stood quietly. The chickens were tucked into their coop, and the crickets had begun their sleepy night song. On the old farmhouse veranda, Pa sat in his favourite chair with a warm mug of coffee in his hands. Around him, the family gathered close. Addi sat on the floorboards, watching the paddocks grow silver in the moonlight. Elsie leaned sleepily against Nan. Mila and Poppy shared a blanket, whispering to each other and pointing up at the sky. Louie lay on his tummy counting stars, while Sonny and Jax sat near the steps, pretending their little pebbles were pirate treasures. Auntie Cass brought out warm jam biscuits. Uncle Jezza switched on the fairy lights above the veranda, and Auntie Lucy tucked blankets around the children. Uncle Jacob stood at the railing, smiling out across the farm. Everything felt still and soft. And then Addi sat up straight. Pa, she whispered, pointing toward the far paddock. What's that? Far beyond the old fence, a tiny golden light floated just above the grass. It glowed softly like a lantern, swaying gently in the dark. Mila gasped. Poppy's eyes widened, and Louie scrambled to his feet. Pa stood slowly, his eyes twinkling. Well now, he said, I haven't seen that lantern in a very long time. You know what it is? Asked Sonny. Pa nodded. When I was a boy, my grandfather told me stories about a whispering lantern. He said it only appears when a family is needed for something magical. That was all the children needed to hear. Boots were pulled on, blankets were wrapped tightly around the shoulders, and together the family followed the lantern out into the moonlit paddocks. The grass whispered around their feet as they walked, past the chicken shed, past the horse paddock, across the little wooden bridge near the creek. The golden lantern floated ahead of them, never too fast, bobbing gently as if it wanted them to follow. At last it led them to the fairy garden. By day, it was already a lovely place, filled with tiny doors, painted stones, flower pots, and little swings tucked among the plants. But tonight it was glowing. The lantern drifted into the center of the garden and gave a warm pulse of light. Then all at once, tiny fairy doors creaked open. Silver dust swirled through the air, and fairies appeared from among the flowers. They were no taller than Pa's hand, with sparkling wings and dresses that shimmered like petals in the moonlight. Elsie clapped with delight. Louie spun in a circle trying to see them all at once. One fairy floated gently forward. She wore a crown of tiny white blossoms and smiled at the family. "Welcome," she said softly. "Tonight is the night of kindness." "What's that?" asked Poppy. "Every act of kindness becomes a star," said the Fairy Queen. "And tonight, our garden needs your help." "We'll help," said Addi at once. And so the night of kindness began. Mila helped a tiny fairy whose ribbon had become tangled in a rose bush. Poppy comforted a baby possum until its mother came back. Louie carefully filled tiny acorn cups with water for thirsty birds and beetles. Elsie gathered fallen flower petals and made tiny bouquets for the fairy homes. Sonny and Uncle Jezza repaired a little wooden bridge in the garden. Jax gently rescued a ladybird trapped inside a daisy. Nan stitched tiny blankets for the smallest fairies. Auntie Cash shared crumbs of honey biscuits for a midnight fairy feast. Auntie Lucy sang soft songs that made the whole garden feel calm. Uncle Jacob hung tiny lanterns in the trees, and Pa quietly moved through it all and helping wherever he was needed. Each kind deed sent a tiny glowing star floating into the sky. At first there were only a few, then more and more. Soon the whole sky above the farm shimmered with golden lights, rising from the fairy garden and settling among the stars. The children stared upwards in wonder. "It's beautiful," whispered Addi. When every little job was finished, the Fairy Queen gathered the family beneath the moonlight. "You have filled the sky with kindness," she said, "and that magic will stay with your family always." She scattered a soft cloud of golden fairy dust over them, and for one lovely moment, everyone glowed. Then the fairies slipped quietly back among the flowers. The tiny doors closed. The garden grew still, and the whispering lantern drifted away into the night. The family made their way back into the farmhouse, sleepy now in the loveliest sort of way. Back on the veranda, Nan wrapped everyone in blankets. Uncle Jacob lit a fire pit, and Auntie Cass poured warm milk into the mugs. One by one, the children curled up close, their eyes heavy as they watched the bright new stars above the paddocks. "Pa," Louie asked softly, "which stars are ours?" Pa smiled and looked up at the sky. "All of them," he said. "Every star that rose from a kind heart tonight belongs to all of us." Addi rested her head on Nan's shoulder. Elsie was already asleep in Auntie Cass's lap. Mila, Poppy, Sonny, Jax and Louie snuggled close beneath their blankets, listening to the crackle of the fire and the soft sounds of the farm at night. And under the brightest sky they had ever seen, the whole family drifted off to sleep, dreaming of fairy wings, glowing lanterns, and stars rising gently into the dark. And if you ever see a tiny golden lantern glowing at the edge of the paddock beneath a country sky, you know it may just be looking for another family, ready for a little magic. Good night, children. Sweet dreams. And don't forget, Pa loves you.